Lacan thought that this model is limited or misleading, and he proposed another kind of type of thinking about the drives, which also stems from some places of Freud, which would be a topological model. Rather, not this energy flowing here and there, being dammed up, discharged, etc., but a topological problem. Drive presents a topological problem. And he saw this as the question of the drive is the question of precisely of the extension of the body. The drive is something which extends the body. It's not simply the pressure inside the body, it's actually the problem with the drive, it's always that it extends the body, prolongs the body. It always reaches towards outside. And this is why also the drives, by Freudian description, are always based on bodily apertures. The oral drive, the anal drive, the question of scopic drive, the question of oral, hearing, vocal drive. There's always a bodily aperture. There's a bodily opening, around which the drives are constituted. There's always the question of the passage between the inside and the outside. So the drives are sort of always, there's always this topological problem. In Freud's own description, the question of jouissance, it always appears precisely on this, on the question of negotiating the border between the inside and the outside. The privileged locus of the drives are the holes in the body. So, in this topological kind of thinking, the drive is a creature of transition. It's the creature of the edge, bodily orifices. Becomes central to the question of drive. And Lacan maintains in Samuel Mladen, he says, drive is an organ. One shouldn't conceive of drive as an energy flow, one should conceive drive as a sort of auxiliary organ. And in that quote about prothesm, about God's prosthesis, actually Freud uses the word auxiliary organs. The tools are our auxiliary organs. And I quote now from Lacan, he said, it's a strange kind of organ situated in relation to the true organ, ungraspable organ, the object we can only circumvent, a false organ, whose characteristic is not to exist, but which is nevertheless an organ. So it's an organ which doesn't exist, it's not palpable, visible. It's nevertheless, one should see it as an extension of the body, as an organ. It's an unreal organ. And he says unreal is not imaginary. The unreal is defined by articulating itself on the real in a way that eludes us. It is precisely this that requires that its representation should be mythical. I will come back to this, that drives are always mythical creatures. This is Freud's own description. Drives are our mythology, he says. And there Lacan proposes this strange kind of organ, which would be a man. But I won't go into this. So, a drive is an organ. It's an organ which is kind of lost and missing on the one hand, but which nevertheless prolongs and extends the body. It appears in these orifices of the body. So, I just made this excursion into the question of how to conceive the drive to reinforce this idea that the drive always appears in this relation between the tool and the body. The tool as the prosthesis, the extension of the body, and the body itself. So there's always something in the use of the tools, which poses the question of the drive, the missing and the lacking organ, as if found again in the tool. So the tool is always secretly endowed with this nature of this missing, unreal organ. And this organ denaturalizes any natural relationship. It sublates nature, and it is endowed with some sort of nature of a blind driving force, a blind driving force which can appropriate everything. Which can appropriate everything regardless of the benefit. So there is something, and if we look at this from a sort of larger perspective, all this development of science and technology, which is the definition of culture, has something in it which has the nature of the blindness of the drive. There's something blind in this. Natural forces are blind, but maybe the forces that tame nature are actually also blind. There's this drive inscribed in them. So you can see that there's a problem. I mean, we're now looking really from a distance. Development of science and technology. Technology cannot be caught into a homeostasis, and hence, well, all the ecological problems, etc., stand with this. So what drives science? What drives technology as the realization of science? Is it the thirst for knowledge? Is it the thirst for the quest for the benefit, for the advantage of human life? The endeavor to benefit mankind, to well-being, to make life easier, more livable. It's clear that there is within this something else that is at stake. Not just the progress of knowledge, usefulness to humanity. And one can see maybe that all this progress of knowledge, usefulness to humanity, can be sort of rationalization, an excuse, a sort of ersatz justification. It's not a real reason for something that cannot be quite justified in these terms. So, in this progressive technological mastering of nature, there is like an automatism which doesn't quite heed utility, or benefit, or welfare, and advantage, and pays no attention to ethical norms. And so you have this problem that you have to have ethical committees set up to say, okay, let's put some boundaries to this development of science. Why? Because the science has this automatism, blind automatism in itself, which cannot be justified just in terms of either knowledge or benefit, or for the well-being. There's something unjustifiable in this. So one has to bridle with ethical norms the excesses of science, just like historically one had to bridle the excesses of sexuality. Culture had to bridle the excesses of sexuality. So you can see that there's a paradox. There's something strange going on. That what was designed to tame nature itself behaves as a drive, and as something that one cannot tame. Science and technology are supposed to tame nature, but they become something that one cannot tame. The tools, as the extension of the body, take over the body, rather like drives take over the body. And I will quote some Slavoj Žižek on this, and he has written on this beautifully. The quotation is not the paradigmatic case of this acephalic knowledge, acephalic habits, knowledge without a head. There is some acephalic knowledge in science, provided by modern science which exemplifies the blind insistence of the test drive. Something of the blind insistence of the test in this progress.
I have one question.
Yes.
When you mean science, it's only modern science, not real science.
No, it's only modern science.
Of course, yes. Because there is a changing cosmology. Okay.
Yes, yes. Yes. A more sophisticated argument should be made about the difference Galilean science with everything that went before. And you know Alexandre Poiré, who is
Yes.
a major reference for Lacan, and who is a great author on explaining why Galilean science is completely different paradigm from anything that went before. And of course, this technological wonder that we witness in the past 3 centuries, this is unlike anything in the history of humanity. If you just imagine in the last 3 centuries what kind of inventions were made which completely shaped our lives, there's no parcel of being left anywhere which would be outside of this technology. There is the modern, the evolution of the modern methods can be seen Heideggerian terms as, you know, Gestell, whatever. But let me not go there. I'll continue with the Zizek quote. Modern science follows its path in microbiology, manipulating genes, the particle physics, heedless of the cost, regardless of the cost. Satisfaction is here provided not by any moral communal goals scientific knowledge is supposed to serve. All the ethical committees which are bound today and attempt to establish rules for the proper conduct, are they ultimately not desperate attempts to reinscribe this inexorable dry progress of science which knows of no inherent limitation, within confines of human goals, to provide it with a human face, with a limitation. Any limitation like this is utterly foreign to the inherent logic of science. So there you have this paradox. So we start from technology. When technology itself starts behaving like the dead. The Freudian description of the dead. So, okay. This is a brief comment on the first trait of culture. So let me progress. Then the second trait of culture. The first trait of culture seems to be put under the heading of utility, the benefit for the maker. But the second trait of culture is completely different. It's placed under the heading of the futile, of the useless. And the true indication of culture, says Freud, ought to be sought in something which is useless, which doesn't function, which doesn't serve the taming of nature, survival. So when we speak of culture, it manifests itself in something like ornament, adornment, supplement, something merely beautiful for its own sake, embellishment, flower beds, jewelry, bracelets, makeup, earrings, just supplements, and which seem to be a sort of waste regarding from the point of view of survival. This seems to be like waste of time and energy. Culture appears where we waste time and energy. Shakespeare's verse is, when friends converse and waste their time together. This is culture. This is pure culture. It doesn't serve anything, you waste your time together. Cultural functions are those which are irreducible to the survival, to increase of power, taming the nature. This is the opposite. This is the opposite end of this tool, taming the nature progress. One needs otium, one needs free time. In culture is when one is exempt from work, struggle for survival. And if you say the culture of food or the culture of clothing, then one means precisely those traits which are not necessary for survival. You have a culture of food, then you really enjoy food. You don't endeavor to just eat to survive. And you know the work of Levi Strauss on this, the question of culture of food. It's from the most primitive stages on. And so there's this moment of expenditure, a moment of non-functional expenditure. And again, one can recall the work of Georges Bataille, who spoke greatly about the question of culture is pure expenditure, sacrifice, spending for nothing, the excess which transgresses a count. So here we have the question, what is the function or what has no function? So why would the useless be at the same time highly valued, like the work of art, which is useless for survival, but at the same time attached with the highest value? Or why would, the question of game, I don't know if you know this discussion, historical, which is fascinating. You know who is Johannes Huizinga or Roger Caillois, the people who wrote on the question of games as essential for being human. Game is precisely something one does in a separate place and time outside of the economy of survival. If you say game, you somehow partition space and time into something that serves survival, economy, etc., and something which is completely outside of this and has special rules which apply only within this particular space and time. So both Huizinga has written classical work on this, Ludens, Caillois was a great interest, Kant's friend, it's a great book on the joy of the zone, the question of gain. So here you have the same question, the useless. You expend a lot of energy for something which is completely useless. And Huizinga speaks about heilige Ernst, the holy earnestness of the game. He says games are more earnest than real life. This is where you have the true passion. The pure passion appears in something game. So there's this question of the supplement, the valuation of the futile, or this word, this word parergon, which is precisely something beyond work. And Derrida made the whole analysis of the question of parergon as a supplement, etc. Starting from accounting reflections. So you have this other aspect, which is an excessive object, an objective excess, a pure expenditure. The drive as a supplement, the drive as a useless addition, the object of a useless expenditure and addition. And these two first traits of culture may form a paradoxical couple. On the one hand, culture appears as the maximization of utility. On the other hand, it appears as pure expenditure, the use of expenditure. So, what is culture? Something that serves, or does something that doesn't serve at all? That is alternative, like both sides, but serving what? Something that has the maximum purpose or no purpose at all. And Kantian definition of the beautiful, purposefulness without purpose. And the third trait of culture is in a way connected to this second one. It's